By the time the town hall ended, Donald Trump would do something no one in the auditorium expected. He would walk off stage mid-question, ripping his microphone off so violently that the wire sparked against his lapel, while Jasmine Crockett stood motionless at her podium with a single photograph in her hand. The photograph was of a 9-year-old girl. Her name was Sophia Ramirez. And what Trump did not know, what his campaign had catastrophically failed to discover, was that Sophia's father had been one of the contractors Trump refused to pay in Atlantic City in 2006, a man who died in 2019 waiting for the $340,000 Trump owed him, and that Sophia herself was sitting in the third row of the audience, 11 years old now, watching the man who destroyed her family lie about it on national television. April 2nd, 2026, ABC News Presidential Town Hall, Phoenix Convention Center. Trump's campaign had negotiated every detail: friendly moderator, pre-screened audience, 60-minute runtime, no fact-checking in real time. What they had not anticipated was that ABC, under pressure to appear balanced, would include Jasmine Crockett as a surprise panelist for the final 20 minutes. Trump's team learned of this change 40 minutes before airtime. The campaign manager's immediate recommendation, according to leaked emails obtained later, was to pull out entirely. Trump overruled him. She's a nobody, Trump said to 3 witnesses backstage. Freshman congresswoman who got lucky in a few hearings. I'll destroy her in 2 questions. He walked onto the stage with the confidence of someone who had never been truly unprepared for anything, because he had never believed preparation mattered. The first 40 minutes proceeded exactly as Trump's team had planned. Softball questions about the economy, about border security, about his poll numbers. Trump dominated every answer, spoke over the moderator twice, gestured broadly to the applauding audience. At the 41-minute mark, the moderator introduced Crockett. For our final segment, we're joined by Congresswoman Jasmine Crockett, who will be asking questions on behalf of voters concerned about accountability and presidential conduct. Trump's face when Crockett walked onto the stage was theatrical in its contempt. He did not stand. He did not acknowledge her. He adjusted his tie and turned to the audience as though sharing an inside joke. Crockett took her position at the second podium, set down a leather folder, and waited. She did not smile. She did not offer a greeting. She simply stood there, hands folded, while the audience settled and the camera operators adjusted their frames. Trump broke the silence first. So they brought you in for the hit job section. Makes sense. ABC needs their ratings. You need your viral moment. Let's get it over with. The audience laughed. Some of them applauded. Trump was playing to his base, and his base was responding. Crockett's expression did not change. When she spoke, her voice carried the same clinical precision that had become her signature. Mr. Trump, I want to talk to you about something you said in 2016. You were asked about your business practices, specifically about contractors you refused to pay. You said, and I have the quote here, "I fight like hell to pay as little as possible. It's called being a good businessman. If they don't like it, they can sue me." Do you remember saying that? Trump leaned back in his chair. I've said a lot of things over 40 years in business. I'm a negotiator. Sometimes contractors do bad work, and I don't pay for bad work. That's not controversial. That's called standards. Crockett nodded as though accepting this answer. So to be clear, when you refused to pay contractors, it was always because the work was substandard. That's your testimony. Trump's eyes narrowed slightly at the word testimony, but he pressed forward. I've built buildings all over the world and hundreds of projects. When people do good work, they get paid. When they don't, they don't. It's very simple. Crockett opened her leather folder. Inside were 6 photographs, each in a protective plastic sleeve, each labeled with a small white sticker. She removed the first photograph and held it up to the camera. This is the Taj Mahal Casino in Atlantic City. It opened in 1990. You called it the 8th wonder of the world. Do you remember this building? Trump's expression shifted to something that, might have been pride. Of course I remember it. It was an incredible building, the most luxurious casino ever built. People said it couldn't be done. I did it. And Crockett continued in the same measured tone. The Taj Mahal cost $2 billion to construct. It employed hundreds of contractors, marble workers, electricians, plumbers, painters, carpenters. Many of them were small businesses, family operations. They took on debt to buy materials for your project because you promised them payment on completion. Do you remember those contractors? Trump waved a hand dismissively. I had thousands of contractors over the years. I can't remember every person who worked on every project. That's what project managers are for. Crockett removed the second photograph. This one showed a middle-aged man in work clothes standing in front of a partially completed interior space, marble columns visible behind him. This is Edward Ramirez. He owned a small marble and tile installation company in South Jersey. In 1989, your project managers hired him to install custom marble work in the Taj Mahal's lobby and high roller suites. The contract was for $340,000. Mr. Ramirez took out a loan to purchase the marble from Italy. He hired 8 additional workers. He completed the installation in February 1990, 1 month before the casino opened. The work was inspected and approved by your construction supervisors. Do you remember Edward Ramirez? Trump's face showed the first flicker of uncertainty. Like I said, I had thousands of contractors. I don't remember specific names from projects 35 years ago. Ginson Seed and Saul Indies. Crockett's voice remained level. Let me refresh your memory. In March 1990, Edward Ramirez submitted his invoice for $340,000 as specified in the contract. Your company did not pay. In April, he submitted a second invoice. No payment. In May, your lawyer sent him a letter stating that the company had reviewed his work and determined it was worth only $120,000. They offered him that amount as final payment. Take it or sue? Those were his options. Do you remember this practice of retroactively determining that completed work was worth less than the contracted price? Trump leaned forward, his voice taking on an edge. If we offered him $120,000, then that's what the work was worth. We had experts evaluate it. This is basic business negotiation. If he thought he was owed more, he should have sued. That's what courts are for. Crockett removed the third photograph. This one showed a legal document, the header clearly visible, complaint for breach of contract, Ramirez v. Trump Plaza Associates. He did sue Mr. Trump. In June 1990, Edward Ramirez filed a lawsuit in New Jersey Superior Court seeking the $220,000 balance you refused to pay. The case number is visible here. Your legal team responded with a motion to dismiss and a counterclaim alleging defective workmanship. The case went to discovery. Your lawyers deposed Mr. Ramirez for 11 hours. They requested every document related to his business finances, his tax returns, his personal bank statements. They subpoenaed his suppliers. They subpoenaed his workers. The legal fees cost Mr. Ramirez $85,000 in the first year. Do you remember using litigation as a weapon to exhaust contractors who couldn't afford to fight you? Trump's face was reddening now. That's how the legal system works. If someone sues you, you defend yourself. I had every right to. Crockett spoke over him without raising her voice. The case lasted 4 years, Mr. Trump. 4 years. During that time, Edward Ramirez's business collapsed. He couldn't take on new projects because he had no capital and no credit. The loan he took out to buy the marble for your casino went into default. The bank foreclosed on his equipment in 1992. By 1993, he had filed for bankruptcy. In 1994, with the case still in litigation, he agreed to a settlement, $80,000. That's 23% of what you originally owed him. You paid him less than the initial $120,000 offer your lawyers made, and it only came after you had destroyed his business entirely. Do you remember this settlement? Trump's voice rose. I don't remember every settlement from every case 30 years ago. I've been involved in thousands of lawsuits. That's what happens when you're successful. People sue you, you settle, you move on. That's business. Crockett removed the fourth photograph. The room had gone very quiet. Audience members who had been applauding Trump minutes earlier were now silent, leaning forward. The photograph showed the same man from the earlier image, visibly older, thinner, standing outside a modest home. This is Edward Ramirez in 2018. After his bankruptcy, he never rebuilt his business. He worked as a general handyman for 24 years. He lived in a rental apartment in Trenton. He developed throat cancer in 2017. The treatment cost $190,000. He had no health insurance because he couldn't afford it after you destroyed his business. He maxed out 3 credit cards paying for chemotherapy. By 2019, he was $240,000 in debt for medical bills. That's $100,000 less than you originally owed him for the marble work he completed in good faith 35 years earlier. Do you see the connection, Mr. Trump? Trump's hands gripped the armrests of his chair. This is ridiculous. You're blaming me for every bad thing that happened to some contractor over 30 years. People get sick. People have financial problems. That's not my responsibility. I didn't give him cancer. Crockett's voice dropped lower, became harder. You didn't give him cancer. You destroyed his business. You used your team of lawyers to exhaust him in litigation he couldn't afford. You paid him 23% of what you owed him after forcing him into bankruptcy. And when he needed money for cancer treatment 30 years later, he was still in debt because you broke him in 1990 and he never recovered. Those are facts, Mr. Trump. Documented facts, stipulated facts from the settlement agreement. Would you like me to show you the settlement document with your signature on it? Trump stood abruptly. This is ambush journalism. This is why people don't trust the media. You bring me here under false pretenses to attack me with some sob story from 30 years ago about a contractor who Crockett cut him off. His name was Edward Ramirez, and he's not a sob story. He was a real person whose life you destroyed because you decided his work was worth less than you promised after he completed it. But we're not done yet, Mr. Trump, because I haven't told you the most important part. And she removed the fifth photograph. This image showed a young girl, perhaps 9 years old, with dark hair and serious eyes, standing beside an older man in a hospital bed. This is Sophia Ramirez, Edward's daughter. This photograph was taken in April 2019, 3 weeks before Edward died. He's in hospice here. The hospice care costs $8,000 a month. Sophia's mother had to take out a loan to cover it, a loan they're still paying off. Sophia was 9 years old when her father died. He told her about you, Mr. Trump. He told her about the Taj Mahal. He told her about the marble he installed that you can still see in photographs of that casino lobby. He told her about the lawsuit. He told her how you destroyed everything he built. And do you know what Sophia asked him 3 days before he died? The auditorium was absolutely silent. Trump had frozen in his half-standing position, one hand still on the chair arm. Crockett's voice was quiet now, but it carried to every corner of the room. She asked him if you ever said you were sorry, if you ever acknowledged what you did, if you ever paid the money you owed. And he told her no. He told her that powerful men like you never apologize because you never have to. He told her that the system protects people like you and crushes people like him. And then he died, Mr. Trump. He died still owed $260,000 by you, plus 35 years of interest, plus the business you destroyed, plus the life he could have had if you had simply paid him what you promised for work your own supervisors approved. She held up the photograph higher. Sophia is 11 years old now, and she's here tonight. She's sitting in the third row. She wanted to see you in person. She wanted to hear what you would say when someone finally asked you about her father. The camera operators following Crockett's gaze found Sophia in the third row. She was small for 11, wearing a dark blue dress, sitting between an older woman and an empty chair. Her face was composed, but her eyes were red. The camera held on her for 3 seconds, then cut back to Trump. His face had gone through several color changes. The confident bluster was gone. He was still half standing, frozen in an awkward position, his mouth slightly open. Crockett stepped out from behind her podium, holding the photograph of Sophia and her dying father. So I'm going to ask you directly, Mr. Trump, in front of Sophia Ramirez and 50 million people watching at home, do you remember Edward Ramirez? Do you remember the $340,000 you owed him? Do you remember the $80,000 you forced him to accept after destroying his business with 4 years of litigation? And do you have anything to say to his daughter about why her father died in debt for medical bills that cost less than the money you stole from him 35 years ago? 10 seconds. 15. The silence was suffocating. Trump's eyes moved from Crockett to the camera, to Sophia, to the moderator, and back to Crockett. His mouth opened twice. Nothing came out. His hand reached up to his tie, then fell. Behind him his campaign manager was making frantic gestures, but Trump seemed unable to see anything except Sophia's face in the third row and the photograph of her father dying in a hospice bed because he couldn't afford cancer treatment. 20 seconds. 25. Then Trump's voice emerged, hoarse and defensive. That's not fair. You can't ambush someone with something from decades ago and expect Crockett's voice cut through his stammering. Can't expect what, Mr. Trump? Can't expect you to remember? Can't expect you to care? Can't expect you to apologize to the daughter of a man whose life you destroyed? Which part is unfair? That I brought the evidence? Or that Sophia wanted to hear you explain why her father's work wasn't worth what you promised. Trump's face twisted into something between anger and panic. I've paid thousands of contractors over my career, so billions of dollars. You're focusing on one case, one guy from 35 years ago, and you're making it sound like Crockett removed the 6th photograph. One guy? Mr. Trump, I have 47 cases just like Edward Ramirez, 47 contractors you refused to pay, 47 lawsuits, 47 settlements where you paid pennies on the dollar after years of litigation. I have the legal records right here in this folder. Marble installers in Atlantic City, painters in New York, cabinet makers in Florida, electricians in Chicago, plumbers in Las Vegas. Every single one of them small business owners. Every single one of them crushed by your legal team. Every single one of them paid a fraction of what you owed them if they were paid at all. Edward Ramirez wasn't an exception, Mr. Trump. He was the pattern. And Sophia isn't the only child who lost a parent to the consequences of your business practices. She's just the one I brought here tonight. Trump's breathing was audible now. His hand moved to his microphone pack. I'm not going to stand here and be attacked with lies, and Crockett's voice rose for the first time. What's the lie, Mr. Trump? That you hired Edward Ramirez? That's in your company's contract signed by your project manager. That you refused to pay him the contracted amount? That's in your lawyer's letter offering $120,000 for work contracted at $340,000. That he sued you? That's public record case number on file in New Jersey Superior Court. That you settled for $80,000 after 4 years. That's in the settlement agreement with your signature that he went bankrupt. That's in the federal bankruptcy filing that he died in debt. That's in his estate records. Which part is a lie? Show me one document I've referenced that isn't real. Show me one fact I've stated that isn't true. Trump ripped the microphone off his lapel. The wire caught and sparked visibly a small flash of electricity. His face was dark red now, sweat visible at his temples. This is a setup. This whole thing is a setup. ABC should be ashamed of themselves for allowing this kind of ambush. I'm done here. He stepped away from his chair. Crockett's voice stopped him before he reached the stairs. Mr. Trump, Sophia has one question for you. She wrote it down this morning. She asked me to read it if you wouldn't answer my questions. Would you like to hear it? Trump turned back, his expression wild. I don't care what. Crockett was already reading from a small piece of notebook paper. It's Dear Mr. Trump, my dad said you were the reason we were always poor. My dad said you didn't pay him for work he did good. My mom says we can't afford to fix our car because we're still paying for Dad's hospital. If you were sorry, would you pay us the money you owed him? Because my mom cries a lot and I think the money would help. Thank you, Sophia Ramirez, age 11. The auditorium was completely silent. Several audience members were crying. The camera found Sophia again. She was looking directly at Trump, her small face serious, waiting. Trump stood at the edge of the stage, one hand still clutching the microphone he had ripped off, his chest heaving. When he spoke, his voice cracked. You can't do this to someone on live television. You can't bring a child here to, Crockett folded the note carefully. I didn't bring her here, Mr. Trump. She asked to come. When she found out you would be at this town hall, she asked her mother if she could attend. She wanted to see you. She wanted to know if you would finally tell the truth about her father. So here's your chance. Tell her the truth. Did you owe Edward Ramirez $340,000 for work your supervisors approved? Did you pay him only $80,000 after destroying his business? And do you think an 11-year-old girl should have to write letters begging for money her father earned 35 years ago? Trump's mouth opened and closed. No words came. Behind him, his campaign manager was now physically motioning toward the exit. Trump looked at the manager, looked back at Crockett, looked at Sophia. Then he turned and walked off stage without another word. The wire from his disconnected microphone dragged behind him, trailing across the floor like a severed tail. The camera stayed on his retreating back until he disappeared into the wings. Then they cut to Sophia, who was crying silently while her mother held her. Then to Crockett, who stood motionless at her podium, holding the photograph of Edward Ramirez in his hospice bed and the note his daughter had written in careful 11-year-old handwriting. The moderator attempted to restore order. We'll take a brief break, and Crockett spoke into her microphone. There's no break needed. Mr. Trump was asked a simple question by a child whose father he destroyed. He chose to walk away rather than answer. That tells you everything you need to know about his character, his business practices, and what kind of person seeks the presidency while refusing to apologize to the children of the people he crushed on his way up. Saying I mine in speech, she gathered her materials, stacking the photographs precisely. I came here tonight prepared to have a factual conversation about accountability. I brought evidence. I brought documentation. I brought a real human being whose life was permanently damaged by Mr. Trump's actions, and he couldn't even look her in the eye. Being in they saw, and she turned to face Sophia directly. Sophia, your father was right about a lot of things. He was right that powerful men don't usually apologize. He was right that the system often protects people like Mr. Trump. But he was also right about one more thing. The work he did was beautiful. I've seen photographs of the marble he installed in the Taj Mahal. It was museum quality. Your father was an artist, and Mr. Trump used his art to build his casino and then refused to pay him for it. That's theft. And tonight, 50 million people watched Mr. Trump unable to deny it. She walked across the stage to where Sophia sat. The cameras followed her. She knelt down so she was eye level with the girl. Your father deserved better. You deserve better. And I promise you that every person watching tonight now knows your father's name and what was done to him. She handed Sophia the photograph of her father. So keep this. Remember him. Remember that he fought for 4 years against someone who had 100 lawyers. Remember that he never gave up trying to get what he was owed. And when you're old enough, if you want to keep fighting for that $260,000 plus 35 years of interest, I know some lawyers who work for free for cases like this, because your father's debt doesn't disappear just because Mr. Trump walked off stage. I see, and Sophia took the photograph with shaking hands. She whispered something inaudible. Crockett leaned closer. Sophia whispered again, loud enough for the nearby microphones to catch. Thank you for saying his name. Crockett stood. She walked back to her podium, collected her folder, and addressed the camera directly. Mr. Trump came to this town hall because he thought he'd have an easy night answering friendly questions from a friendly crowd. He thought he could control the narrative. He thought no one would challenge him on his business record because it was too old, too complicated, too easy to spin. What he didn't count on was that the daughters of the men he destroyed grow up. They remember, they keep records, and sometimes they get the chance to ask why their fathers died in debt to a man who became president. She paused, letting the weight of that sink in. At the start of this segment, Mr. Trump called me a nobody, a freshman congresswoman who got lucky. But I'm not the one who walked off stage unable to answer an 11-year-old girl's question. I'm not the one who spent 40 years crushing small businesses and calling it good business. I'm not the one who's running for president while children of my victims are still paying off their parents' medical debt. She looked directly into the camera. Sophia asked if you were sorry, Mr. Trump. Your answer was to rip off your microphone and flee. That's not the behavior of a good businessman. That's not the behavior of someone fit to lead a country. That's the behavior of a man who knows exactly what he did and can't face the consequences. And 50 million people just watched you prove it. The moderator, invisibly shaken, attempted to close the segment. We'll be right back after Crockett was already walking off stage. But before she exited, she turned back one final time. One more thing. Mr. Trump said if contractors didn't like his payment offers, they could sue. Edward Ramirez did sue. It cost him his business and his life, but the settlement agreement included a confidentiality clause. He was never allowed to speak publicly about what Trump did to him. That's how these settlements work. The powerful buy silence along with immunity. But Sophia wasn't a party to that agreement. She can say whatever she wants. And tonight she let me say it for her. Atazuri and San Inai. Crockett held up the folder containing the 47 other cases. I have 46 more names in here. 46 more contractors. 46 more families destroyed. Every one of them has children who remember. Every one of them has documentation. And every single one of them is willing to come forward now that they've seen what happened here tonight. Mr. Trump can walk off 100 more stages. He can rip off 1,000 more microphones. But he can't walk away from the evidence. And he can't silence the children of the people he destroyed. They're grown now. They have their father's records. And they're done being quiet. The camera held on Crockett as she walked off stage, then cut back to Sophia, still holding the photograph of her father, crying quietly while her mother whispered to her. The moderator attempted to wrap the segment, but ABC made the decision to cut to commercial without further comment. The damage was done. Within 20 minutes, the clip had 8 million views. By morning, it was the lead story on every network except Fox News, which did not mention it at all. Trump did not tweet. He did not Truth Social. He did not release a statement. His campaign sent a one-sentence response to press inquiries. The former president was ambushed with false allegations and chose not to dignify them with a response. But ABC released the full documentation Crockett had provided: the contracts, the legal filings, the settlement agreements, the bankruptcy records, Edward Ramirez's death certificate, Sophia's medical debt statements, all of it verified, all of it real. And in, a small apartment in Trenton, New Jersey, Sophia Ramirez watched the clip replay on her mother's phone and asked the question that would become the headline across a dozen major outlets: does this mean he'll finally pay us? Her mother, who had carried Edward's debt for 7 years, who still owed $127,000 in medical bills, who worked 2 jobs to keep Sophia fed and housed, held her daughter and told her the truth. Probably not, baby.